Can you guys see well? Okay. This painting is called Tracks to the City, and it's from about, the first two paintings I'm going to show you are not back to the beginning of my art making or my painting, but rather to the first paintings I did that truly started to feel like the paintings about the city that I feel like all my life I've wanted to paint. So let me just go back from Tracks to the City for a moment. Generally, I do want to say that the paintings I'm going to show you are all quite large, meaning 6, 7, 8, 9 feet high by, you can see the dimension, 5, 6 so feet wide. If there's some odd shaped thing that I need to tell you about, I will. I can be more precise about the dimensions at another time, but I don't want to waste time on that. So just generally that you know, these are pretty big, bigger than your field of vision size. So I was born in New York, but I actually, when I was about 7, my parents moved to Montreal. We have a lot more overlap than you think. It sounds like I'm this total American New Yorker, which I am again. But so I grew up in Montreal, and I went to school, BF undergrad, at NASCAD. So we really have more in common than you realize. And it was a very significant time. It was in the mid-70s, the height of the first generation of conceptual artists. And painting was non-existent. However, what was fantastic about the school at that time was that it taught me, I learned how to think. I learned how to think about ideas, how to access meaning. And what was so great about these first conceptualists, at least, they weren't hierarchical. They didn't hate painting. They just wanted us to choose a medium that best suited the ideas, the meaning that we were trying to access. You know, at your age, you guys, you know there's something in you, but you can't completely prove it. So there's all this kind of doubt and self-doubt and struggle and like feeling strong and then feeling like nothing and then feeling strong. And it's very important that you keep it open and not decide what your medium is and let your ideas kind of guide you. And what I realized, what I came to understand about painting that I love so much is were both its limits and its infinite possibilities. And this is going to come up all through the slide talk, and I'll try to start moving ahead in one sec. The dialectical, if you all know what that word means, I think you do, the kind of opposing forces in a painting are very similar to what we are as human beings, which is that it's a physical lump on a piece of stuff. It's just stuff on stuff. It's also the record of a moment of action. However, the minute you enter it, it's infinite in time and space. It's not hierarchical. You don't move like in a written piece or in a film from beginning to end, or even in music. You can kind of zoom in and around, you can stop. And it changes every time a person sees it. It's about time and space and movement. And my paintings, if they're about anything, they're about moving and time and space. Because I think the thing that I love so much about the city is that it's such a complex layering of kind of insane crowdedness and incredible loneliness. of closeness and far, rust. So this painting, the reason I start with it is these are tracks, railroad tracks leading to Manhattan up there. This is from Brooklyn, from something called the Pulaski Bridge that joins Brooklyn to Queens. And I love the experience of looking down and seeing like rusty old tracks and a piece of garbage and a rock, and then moving your head up and it's 7 million people in the center of the world. And that it's exactly that tension, that's the story that I want to put into a painting. So black-eyed stars over Brooklyn. We have another connection. We'll tell you about it another time. So what I'm going to show you is just a few of, oh God, I'm a painting junkie. I really am, like a crazy, serious workaholic. I'm smiling all the time because I'm in heaven when I'm talking and making and arguing about painting. And the way that I paint is that I go out drawing. All my works come from drawings. I cannot use photographs. I wish I could, but they make me go blind. They make me forget what I was seeing, because what I'm seeing, the story I'm trying to tell, is a story that's more than in a photograph. It's the story of this, right? It's the story of these lumpy old feet on the ground and my imagination and my eyes flying around. And as I have painted over the years, I've become more and more aggressive about putting down the marks of the tracks of my movement and the records of movement of things. So you'll see by the end, there are very significant marks and lines and travel lines in my works that are the lines that you can kind of hook onto and ride along. So this is from the highest subway stop in Brooklyn, called Smith and 9th Street. And it's, again, the subway's coming in here, and lower Manhattan's over here. You can maybe not see it on the slide, but the Statue of Liberty's over there. I love to be a tour guide. All right. My other problem is I can blab on about everything too much because, everything has a million stories, right? And you're kind of hopping ahead. So if anybody is checking their watch and it's getting late and I've only gone a few slides, just say, hurry up, Heller. Move. So we're up to about the mid-90s. This is about a 9-foot high painting. So you have to realize that when you are standing in front of this painting, your head is about here. It's called City on My Mind. It's one of the few, I don't tend to paint people that much. There are probably a million reasons for it. In a way, New York City is my person. I love all cities, but New York, since I was born, I feel like it's a place that is my lover, my lifetime love. So that's a painting of me in motion, of course, blabbing. And I'm looking up. God only knows how I made this, because I went to a conceptual art school, so I never really learned perspective. I never learned figure drawing. You didn't learn the traditional things there at that time. And this is Manhattan coming out of my hair. Sitting on my mind. Okay, it's kind of a one-liner. And that's New Jersey over there. I don't know why I feel like I have to be a tour guide. And the other thing I have to fill in for you, since you can't see it, is that the paint is really, really, really thick. It's really physical. And the reason I do that is to slow you down, you viewers. I really can't stress enough in this time of short attention span how other the experience of a painting can be, should be, and has to be if you're really going to understand it. It should take as long to look at a painting as to watch a full-length feature film. And that's just the beginning. Because actually when you watch that film and you love it, you want to watch it over and over, right? You know, a painting is slow. It's, in a way, it's turning into Latin these days, isn't it? It's a kind of experience that's more and more lost. But in a way, it makes it more beautiful, more poignant. All right, let me go on. Okay, jump ahead. I guess this is pretty clearly 2000. This is about 1999, and that's 2003. And I will tell you about what you're looking at. You're looking at the Twin Towers. They are exactly as you said. One is 21 feet high, and the other is 26 feet high. And I was one of these lucky, lucky, lucky people that had was in this Lower Manhattan Cultural Council studio space in the World Trade Center. What they did was, it was a beautiful thing, they gave the spaces that weren't rented in the Twin Towers to artists to work from. And I didn't even get space. Somebody else I know got it, and he didn't want it. Crazy. And he thought of me. So everybody else in there was kind of like French easel painters, doing these like very, very realistic, kind of very formal, academic paintings. And there was like wacky me with my crazy drawings. I should say a little more about the drawing, just sharing with all of you. The way that I draw, first of all, I draw all the time. I've always got pads. I don't go anywhere. I hope you don't go anywhere without at least your drawing books, your journals. And I do it the way most people take notes, but I take visual notes. And they're shorthand. And they're not drawings necessarily of things. They're drawings of places and all the complexity that's in a place. The things that are moving, the things in my head. And I get to corners and places and views where I feel like something is coming together. And I don't know what it is, and I just start drawing there. And the drawings, there are thousands of them. I have a few shots of my studio, and I put them up on the wall and live with them, and then I draw from those, and slowly, 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 they start to tell me what to paint. And the paintings aren't based on one, but usually based on many drawings. So anyway, I was up in the 91st floor of the World Trade. I was supposed to be there for 6 months. I was there for a year and a half. I left right around the middle of 2000. So I missed the worst. But while I was there, I wanted to make a portrait of the other World Trade Center. So I have no fear of heights, I'm wacky, so I would get up on the windowsill and lean my nose against the glass and look straight down and just feel that vertigo and get like, woo! You know, and I wanted to make a portrait of that. And also the kind of phallicness of these buildings, you know, like, so, are you kidding me? You know, it's just the whole thing. And so I started to draw it on the wall. I'm sorry. This is my Brooklyn coming out, I guess. I started to draw it on the wall, and the walls are rather short, and they were like 8 feet, and I drew it. It was sort of like up to here, and I was like, nothing. So I put it on the floor and just kept going. And I kept gluing and drawing and gluing and drawing. And finally it got to be this height. And it was nuts. I couldn't even see the damn thing. I was like standing on a ladder and trying to look down. And then when I had to leave the space, we tried to roll it up, but it was already like 11 feet wide. And we folded it and rolled it, and I thought, oh God, I'm killing this thing. We had to put it on the roof of the car, drive it over the bridge to my studio. I thought it would be dead. Well, I obviously had so damn much Lepage's white glue on there. You probably could sail to China on that drawing. I opened it back up. It was fine. Except I never could see it. I did not see it. Well, this was actually bought by the AGO. When they hung it, it was the first time I ever saw it up. Isn't that wild? And then, of course, after 9/11, and I'm going to show you a few other works that have to do with the post, bringing down of the buildings. I was looking at this drawing, actually up in the AGO, and I thought, I have to make the other building. So that very night, all through the night, I started to make drawings about it. And what I had done is right after the buildings fell, I actually saw them fall from my corner. One, and then the other. First I saw the thing hit, and then there was a whole group of people gathered there. I won't go into detail because I can talk about that for 2 years. And I'm glad to talk about it with you later. I love to hear what other people were doing. I like the stories. I started going down there. I got down to the site the next day. I had to walk all the way north and then all the way south because only certain bridges were open just to walking. And I was there almost every day drawing the ruins, drawing the scene. And what I did to make this drawing is I drew the ruins of the Trade Center over and over and over again, and like a reverse Humpty Dumpty, I stacked them up. So I don't have a close-up, but every one of these is a little bit of ruin. So in a way, I was like putting the pieces back together. There's also the hole where it hit, and you could see pieces flying off. So in a way, I did a before and after, but they're together again. And they actually live together. And this is called, what is this called? Explosion and Gone. So there are the trade towers sort of being consumed into the smoke. Because that's what we saw. We saw kind of an explosion, and then the tops of the buildings seemed to sink into the smoke. And it was so unreal to us. We were all like kind of screaming and going, are we seeing what we think we're seeing? Like we couldn't actually believe it. So this is just raw canvas over here. And as you go, it gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker, as if the building itself has transmorphed into this stuff, the stuff of the paint, the stuff of the crap, and the smoke, and nothing. And then for months, you probably heard that bits of paper and burnt stuff was flying around. I mean, it took months and months for that to settle down, and people in Brooklyn were finding scraps. It's pretty macabre. And this is called 3 Days After. What the scene looked like. This was a really nice thing to hear too as artists. They wouldn't let anyone come close with cameras or tourists. But because I was drawing, therefore at work, no problem. I would come right to the site, stand on the site. They got used to seeing us too. There were a handful of artists who were there drawing. And nobody said a word. And there's something about drawing which I came to realize later at another sort of tragedy in my life, was that, when you start to draw or paint or sculpt or whatever it is you do, but for me, it's particularly the case in drawing. When that pencil tip touches that paper, I feel like time stops and I'm connected. I'm physically one with what it is I'm telling, like a storyteller, and what it is I'm looking at. You lose time. And it's a very liberating thing to lose time. The other thing that's amazing is that we as artists are really used to working from a blank space. So it might be hard for some people to function after a major catastrophe or horror. But I think for an artist, we have a kind of leg up on that. We know how to start with nothing. It's what you have to learn as artists, is how to start again, right? So in a way, it all made such sense to be down there. This is yellow. See how I tend to circle out as I talk? I hope I'm not wandering too far. Everything around was just consumed with yellow caution tape. It was like a world of this yellow. And in amongst that were these ruins. The ruins of the building were phenomenally gorgeous in a kind of tragic way, the way the ruins of any crash or post-war zone would look. And to me, they would have made the most beautiful monuments and the most poignant monuments. They were twisted steel. Some were like 6 or 8 stories high, and they picked up the light. I mean, they looked like great sculpture. So what did the bureaucrats do? Dismantled them. And they spent millions and millions creating a memorial. They had it right there. But they couldn't do that, All right. One more, World Trade Center. I know I'm already behind time, but yeah, it's okay. This is called Ghost Tower. It's about 18 feet high. It's enormous. And I painted, I think I finished it around 2003. Yeah, somewhere around there. And I wanted in a way make a memorial to the event and to the towers, kind of like a mausoleum or something you would see in a graveyard. So I thought of this tower as marble in a way, imprinted, or what's the word? Sculpted it, with a kind of surface picking up the scaffolding and the ruins and the explosion. And here's the skyline of Manhattan. There's the Empire State Building from Brooklyn. And the trade towers would have been down there. And it's sort of disappearing into transparency at the bottom. And these marks are splash pour marks. So when you see the thing live, it really kind of manifests physically in very many different ways. The blue wires, or the blue lines, are actually the blue of scaffolding. New York City, for some reason, the scaffolding is blue there. I have no idea why. So in a way, it's again about lifting up, building, going back. There's something a little optimistic in my head about it. And then here and there along the way, I do these wacky installations where I'm trying to bring in some of the drawings that populate my studio. And this is just one example. I've done many, many. But this is a particularly focused one because it's also about living in New York after 9/11. Again, you could sort of see the redrawing of that ghost tower. And these are all little paintings. I did scores of little paintings about the ruins, about the event. They were all in a show together. So all these are little, kind of made of scraps, made of garbage, made of chunks of this and that. This is a piece of canvas that's painted orange and wrapped around. I call it extension cord. You know those orange extension cords? And the plug is actually made out of a big lump of paint. It's kind of funny. So this is installed in a gallery. Okay, so we're up to, when is Hard Rain from? 2008 already. All right. I lose track of time. So I've obviously skipped ahead a few years. And I started to kind of look around the city again and look away from, stop thinking, at a certain point you stop living from that event and you just start living on. And, the thing is, if I am having a lifetime love affair with New York City, then if something happens to the person you're, having a relationship with, you nurse them through it, and then you continue on the relationship, right? You see the injury, but you go on. So this is a painting. Actually, I started teaching in Newark in New Jersey, and this is called the Meadowlands. It's this incredibly flat marshland in New Jersey. This is called Hard Rain. Do you all know the Bob Dylan song? And it's a term that means bad things are going on. Time to worry. Things aren't too great. Actually, very significant for today. If anybody is political here and knows the nightmare that occurred yesterday in the States, the insanely right-wing, beyond belief, almost fascist people just took the whole Congress. It's a complete nightmare. We could talk about that later over wine. I'm really glad to be here away from that news because it's just so horrible. Anyway, so you can see there's still a lot of darkness going on, and maybe there's always some humor and some darkness in all my work. But you're looking through the catastrophe, and way back there is Manhattan. And now the Empire State Building is again the one that's sticking up. It's a pretty big painting. It's about 9 feet wide. Sorry, I'm in feet and inches. I know can you guys translate back? We never did. Americans are so backward in so many ways. And it didn't come into Canada until I left. So I kind of never learned it that well. I mean, I kind of know it. Even when I hear Celsius, I still have to translate back to Fahrenheit. So that's Hard Rain. I hope I'm not rushing too much, but I realize I'm slowing down too much too. Okay, a prototype of many works I have done and continue to do. I live in a place in a part of Brooklyn called Greenpoint, which is right by the water. It's just north of Williamsburg. Kind of in the middle, facing the middle of Manhattan. And I walk over the Williamsburg Bridge all the time. I walk in and out of the city. You can imagine why I walk, 'cause I have to draw and I have to see the view, and I'd like to get up high and look down, right? Because you can't, sometimes it's good to be down and looking up, but it's also really great to be up and looking out and over. And I love to see, you know, the life in the city and the boats and the wakes of the boats and those lines that are made and the birds and the traffic. I love the complexity. So I've done a lot of drawings and paintings of the view. And this is a view from the Williamsburg Bridge, looking north. It's called Balzac's Tunnel. I'll tell you why. So this is the East Side Drive here, and that's the tunnel underneath, and you're looking north in the city. This is the East River. And as I was drawing this image and I started to paint it, I realized it was reminding me of something. And what it was reminding me of, does anyone have any idea? The Rodin Balzac. You know that one? Like he did a lot, but you know that one that's kind of cloaked, you know? And he's like this? Doesn't that kind of look like that? And I really, really love that sculpture, and I really love Balzac. So I'm a mad reader beyond belief. So it was an homage in a way to both. And I like to think of turning the city into a figure as well. It kind of towers over you too. This painting is very high, like 9 feet. And that sculpture, if you've ever seen it in Paris, full size, it's really big and it's very domineering, which of course Balzac was as a person apparently too. This is called The Conversation. I think in a way it speaks for itself. The conversation being between the edge of the city that's almost being an island and this cloud or angel or astral projection or I don't know what. And of course, I love to stick Manhattan in way far away. I have to share with you the story of making this cloud, and then I'll move on. I also want to emphasize to students who are learning about painting and going to artist talks and thinking, oh my God, she's got it all together, everything makes sense, and everything leads to everything else. No, Every single one is like reinventing the wheel. And for me, at least, I've tried to have a formula, it just does not work for me. And even though one clearly has a signature and it starts to come out, to me, I experience it as failing all the way to the end. You know, I love the Beckett, fail again, fail better, So I'm a fail better kind of painter. And this cloud, I painted and scraped and painted and scraped maybe for about 3 months. The painting was done, except for the damn cloud. It was wet going out the door to the show that it was going to be in Toronto. And I would speak to my dealer every day, the art gallery dealer. I was like, tried again, no, it didn't work. I knew what it had to be, and of course, the great thing about painting is what you need to see, but you have no idea what that looks like until you make it. And this is why the failure thing is so important. And also, it's very important for thinking that you not be afraid to fail. You're never going to move on and add on and deepen without failing and picking it up again. And the other great thing about painting is that every time you put something on, you're covering something over. So it is really scary, and you do make mistakes, and you do go too far. Are you all really good at stepping away in the middle of working and keeping an eye on it? Is that hard? That's one of the hardest things to do, isn't it? Like you have all your paint mixed up, and you're loading it on, and it's so much fun, and you forget to step away, so you may not be stopping in time. Stopping is as hard as starting. So that's another reason this is called the conversation. I got really stubborn. I just thought, I'm just going to keep doing this until it's right. And one day it was. Do you know the story of the Gertrude Stein painting of Picasso? Well, I shouldn't waste time, but he did the same thing with that famous Gertrude Stein. He painted it over and over, and it was wrong and wrong and wrong. And he worked and slaved, and finally one day he just came in, painted the painting we know in 20 minutes. It was perfect. But he had to do it wrong a million times. Painting has its own mind, right? This is called Pirates or Pagoda? Question mark. And this is the story of Greenpoint, Williamsburg for the last 15 years. These monster condos. I don't know if you have that going on here, but it's really bad in Brooklyn. And the whole area is transformed. I mean, I've been there long enough that it was a wonderful working class, union, great neighborhood, multinational, nobody rich, nobody poorish, great place to live. And now it's like completely overtaken by, we call them trust funders. These people who are like 20 years old, and all they do is sit around and drink really, really expensive coffee and like talk about shopping. I don't know what that. God, it's horrible. Anyway, these buildings are really gorgeous before they're finished because they have that siding, right? You've seen it. It's all like chartreuse yellow or pink or some wacky green, and then they cover it up with the same steel and horrible, disgusting, ugliest things. And then they have those big tarps hanging off, you know, that are catching. And they're so beautiful. And they look, it could either be a pagoda, like a monument, or a pirate stealing away our neighborhood, or maybe it's a bit of both. But I love them at that moment. Also, I think scaffolding and buildings at that moment are in motion. And that sort of fits into my story of things being in time. You know, it's a very Marxist thing as well, that, you know, there is no linearity in history. History is, our time is always in motion. The past, present, future is always now. It's very Proustian too. I don't know if anyone's ever attempted reading Proust. I really love him, and I actually recommend him to visual people because a lot of those pages are filled up with him just looking. But to cut to the chase, this many pages in one sentence, what he basically writes about is that every single time you have a memory or a thought or an experience, you're having it again for the first time because you are a new person. And when I read that, I felt like I already knew that, and I've already said it to myself. Now, maybe I hadn't, but he made it gel in me. And it's one of the most significant things that thrills me, that has since I can remember being a little child, the idea of time and infinity. And I remember asking my father when I was really little, like 5 or 6, but what's after infinity and what's after that? And I just love to think about it and think about time and think about death and people gone and present. And one of the wonderful things about all the arts, music, visual arts, dance, whatever it is that all of a sudden the person that made it is there with you. Like you look closely at a Van Gogh like this, and it's like he's there. That mark, he made that mark. He's not gone, he's right there. And when you're drawing or painting, you're lost in time. It's any time. It's quite a magical experience. And here's one of the rare, this is actually a very small painting. I stuck it in because I actually repainted it just last summer. But again, it's a pirates or pagoda, but also has almost like a Tower of Babel. What are those called? Cranes, thank you. Oh, it's such a beautiful name. But it's about this big. So maybe you can see the pink quality a bit better when it's small. I'm slowing down, aren't I? Well, I'll try to speed up a little bit here. I rarely am working inside, but this is actually, I did a whole bunch of paintings of Grand Central Station. So if you could imagine somebody like me with my story, where would I choose to paint an interior? A place that's almost like a landscape. And what I was lucky enough to access was there are these catwalks at the ends of Grand Central, and you can get up like 5 stories and look down. Oh, it's so fantastic because people sort of gather and line up, and it gets empty, and there's this beautiful flow and give. And I don't know if anyone's been to New York or been to Grand Central. It's a very, very beautiful, beautiful train station with this famous information booth in the middle and this clock. And it's sort of illuminated. The ceiling is a beautiful blue-green painting of the solar system, not the solar system, the constellations, so beautiful. And at Christmas, they do this tacky thing on the ceiling with the lights. It's really a beautiful place. It's really, really, really beautiful. So that was my interior. Okay, this is, what did I call this? Oh my God, I've got to move along. Panorama of Ruins. I've really got a long way, and I know I'm talking. I'll try to move through these and not say too much other than just tell you the subject. It's actually one of the first things I've ever done that wasn't vertical, and I started to do a lot of panoramas and horizontals because I realized one of the stories I wasn't telling was the story of walking. And walking and painting and looking and being in the city are very interconnected. If you think of your body as sort of cutting a unique path every time you take a walk through the city that both follows order and then is kind of anarchistic in a way, because where you stop and start and jaywalk and cross is a one-time thing. So I wanted to start making paintings about that actually transform as they go. It just seemed to make a lot of sense in terms of talking about movement and traveling. This was a fire on the waterfront of Brooklyn. that was a long path very near where I live. And I saw it that night. No one was hurt. It was warehouses. But so you could see the smoke coming off there. This is about, I hope I wrote it down somewhere here, about 14 feet wide. And you'll see as we go, these get wider and wider. And the very last thing, which I'm supposed to be rushing towards because I just finished it, here's another one. This is from 2009 and to 10. And this is called On the Heel Toe Express. And I stole that title because I'm walking over the bridge and someone had graffitied the Heel Toe Express. It's the cutest thing. I just love it. It's like, oh my God, it's for walkers. We're on the Heel Toe Express. So this is my studio. And it's not a big studio. It has very high ceilings, which makes it a lovely place, but it's only like 400 square feet. So when things get too long, I have to go around the corner. But this was actually sold, and it's flat. And it looks fine flat, but it's kind of fun going around the corner too. And how long is Heel Toe Express? I just finished something even wider than it. It is 366 inches wide, whatever that is in feet. It's really long. And you can see it's made out of separate panels. And all these are some of the drawings. So this is an example of, my whole studio looks like this. It's really wacky. But I'm that's how I see. I need to see everything together. But these pieces are actually part of the work. And I think I included a shot. Good. Installed. So you can see it kind of isolated and clean. And you're traveling along a fence, and then that ruin thing is happening here. Here's a little bit of ghost of trade towers. There's Manhattan back here. It's kind of hard to see. Here's some cranes, one of those monster condo things. So it's all the different stories along the Brooklyn. Here's some piles of timber. Where there were warehouses, now there are condos. Okay. Another kind of interesting thing I got invited to was this incredible show called Holland Mania in Leiden in Holland. And it was a show. Leiden is the city from which the first Dutch explorers and settlers traveled to go to the New World and live in Manhattan, right? And that was the Dutch New York before the British came in, and it was a very different, Leiden was a very, very forward-looking city of its time, full of universities. Descartes lived there as a kind of a political expat, and they had all these very progressive ideas way ahead of their time about child rearing and all this. And I'm like such a nut for New York City, so I was thrilled to participate. They gave us each a room in this museum in Leiden. And the one I got was full of these blue tiles. So I took some of the tiles out, and I didn't only put in drawings, but I made little tiles that were views of Manhattan and of Brooklyn. And I just placed them in there. And when you first walked in that room, you almost couldn't see the difference. And then, of course, you could see. So it was very touching to me to be able to sort of connect back to that. Somehow that connection to the Dutch made sense to me as to why New York is kind of different from the rest of the country. You know, there was a somewhat of a more progressive, not that they were such angels, but somewhat more progressive. Not such religious fanatics. Here's a little close-up. See those little tiles of mine? In and amongst? It was fun. It was a really wonderful experience. And this is actually a painting called Mannahatta. I was also reading at the time this incredible book called The Island at the Center of the World, which actually was a translation of all these diaries of those first Dutch settlers who were real naturalists. And, you know, actually Manhattan was a multicultural, multinational city, and there was intermarriage, very rare. You know, even with the natives, I mean, it was just a moment in time, but very progressive. So it's a painting of Manhattan as a figure, almost as a pregnant woman or something. To me, it's like, it's womb-like. And I sort of exaggerated. Can you see something similar in a lot of my vertical paintings, particularly that how the space changes as you look at it, right? So you're always up and looking out. I try to find a horizon that you can travel to. And then you're looking at, and then you're looking down. And I like to have a lot of different viewpoints layered into one painting. Also in a way to suggest that you look at the paint as paint, and as color, and as motion, and as image, so that you start to play with the painting and then do what you want, travel where you want, you know? And, you know, honestly, I do this because that's what I loved to do when I was a kid. It's what turned me on to painting myself, was how much you could turn the painting into your own story mixed with the story of the voice coming out from it. This is called Jerry's Wrecking Ball, Takes Manhattan. This is from 2009. It's an homage to my mentor and my dear friend Jerry Ferguson. Some of you may know who that is. From significant NASCAD character. Everyone, a very divisive person. People loved him or hated him, and he was the same. He loved them or hated him. I was on the loved them side. We were very, very close. He's a total conceptual artist who was profoundly supportive of me. I don't know why. I loved it. He loved painting, even though he was a conceptual painter, very, very different, our voices. But we had something in common, which was we were both like art junkies and passionate about working, deadly serious. I get to my studio around 7:15 in the morning. I'm a nut job. And I don't leave. I could stay all night, but I can't. So I leave around 8:30, 9. Sometimes an aide stays with my husband, story to be told later, and I can come later. I just love to be there. And it takes forever to make work, right? I don't know about you, but I work on lots of paintings at once. And it takes me a long time to start them because the drawings have to come together. Another great thing about working on a lot of paintings at one time is that you can, if you're not sure what to do, instead of just physically reacting to it and getting angry, which is a really bad idea, you force yourself to use your mind. You just turn to another one that you know what you're working on, right? And you catch that painting that's giving you a hard time out of the corner of your eye, and you kind of know what to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to loosen up with it. Another thing I would recommend that I do is, and I find it really useful, at the end of the day, I'll sit there for 10 minutes and make little funny, cartoony drawings of the painting and leave notes to myself on it. And sometimes even tease myself, like, idiot, why'd you do that? Fix that, or don't forget to do this, or whatever. And then when I come in the morning, I barely even have to look at it, because once you draw it, you remember it. But then I have it there, too, to remind me, just to kind of connect the one day to the next. So, again, that's Brooklyn. This is Manhattan flying up in the air. That's Central Park. That's the giveaway, right? And there's the wrecking ball. Jerry killed himself, actually, in 2009. And my last email we would email 3 or 4 times a day. We were basically talking to each other from our studios. My last email from him was like, I don't know, 10 hours, 8 hours from the night before. No sign of what was going to happen. So when I got the call, just shocking. But what can you do? So from 9/11 to this, I haven't looked at these for a little while. This is 2010. I had a really bad couple of years there, 2009 through 2011. So Jerry, and then my husband's mother died, and then our neighbor was killed, and then my mother got sick. And then the end of all this, it turned out my husband had this terrible, deadly infection. It's called flesh-eating bacteria disease, necrotizing fasciitis. Very rare, very deadly. I didn't know. He couldn't stand up. I took him to the hospital. Next thing I know, they tell me he's dying. I basically lived in the hospital for a year. He was between life and death for about 3 weeks. I never left. He lived. He lost a leg. He lost part of his torso. But his mind is fine. He's teaching full time. He's a sociologist. It's an amazing story. But during those first days, when you just come in thinking, I don't know, he's like a bit weak. He seems a little wacky, too. Them running down the hall with a gurney with doctors coming from everywhere going, sign this, sign this, sign this. I don't think he'll live. Every day they told me, I don't think he'll make it through the day, but if he does, we're scheduling another surgery. 27 operations in about a month. So I was losing my mind, of course. Who wouldn't? And luckily, I got the pencil out. That's what I was talking about with 9/11. The minute I touched that pencil to that paper, this unbelievable magic happened. Time went away. So I stopped worrying about that he was about to die, or going back over our past and already like mourning it. It was just me and him together. And this flush of love came in. I mean, I was like with him. I was just with him in the moment, and my pencil connected to him. This unbelievably intense way. I mean, can drawing save your life? I think it saved my life at that point. And I just started drawing and drawing and drawing. I did hundreds of drawings. They were my way of being with him. He was in an induced coma for 2 months. But somehow I needed to get in there with him. It was really something. And I didn't look at the drawings for 6 months. I finally got them out. It was really hard to see them and really intense. And I showed them to Bill. His name's Bill. And at first he cried, and then he said to me, this was so beautiful, he said, now I really know what happened to me. Because of course he was in a coma, he didn't know. I could tell stories about it, and I don't mind. I don't mind. It has a nice outcome. These were the bad days. He had a doctor for every organ, and the intensive care was insane. 1 nurse per patient. Brilliant doctor, saved his life. He got a painting. Gave him a painting. There's Bill. Actually, this was about a week after they had reversed the spread of the virus, that it was clear he was going to survive, but he had lost the leg. I'm just showing you a few. So about a year later, I had the drawings up. I was starting to get used to being around them, and I realized I had to make paintings. And as I said to you, I don't know how to paint people or figures, but somehow I was able to draw him. I think all that drawing in the city gave me skill without realizing that I knew how to draw things in front of me, in motion. So I'll show you a few of these paintings. This is quite high, and I wanted it to feel like he had sort of floated up there, like a rowboat in water, and sort of got stuck up there in his hospital bed, which sometimes looked like angel wings to me. And he'd look a bit like an angel, but it was also the first time I ever really made myself look at the way he looked. I mean, now I'm so used to it, I don't even see it. But at first, it was so shocking to see the absence. And yet so peaceful. And the hospital architecture, I'll call it, is like a city in itself. So this was this is actually a painting about my experience as much as about him. It's called Waiting for Dawn. So as I told you, every day the main surgeon would say, I don't think he's going to make it through the night, but if he does, we've scheduled a surgery. So I would sit, and there was a window right above him, looking on the East River, can you imagine? And you could see the dawn coming up in the morning. So all I would think was, if we could just get to see that light, he'll make it to the next surgery, and that's good enough. So I drew Bill and the hospital architecture, as I call it, which is like the city around him, the city of equipment, of beeps and bops and lights that were like him inside, but keeping him alive, but he's alive. And then this sort of monitor screen that seemed to sometimes reflect out the window. So connecting to the outside, which was the me, right? Because the me is the city again. I don't know. It just made such a perfect circle. So that was the story of him, and there he is. Shocking to me that I could paint him. I had no idea what the hell. But as I said, I never quite know what I'm doing each time around. And this is Bill now. This is called phantom pain because that's a real thing. He gets pain in the left leg that doesn't exist. And you take some medications. Basically, there's not too much you can do. What it is, it's kind of amazing, it's nerve memory. So the nerves that are still there are telling you things about things that aren't there. Isn't that incredible? But sometimes he gets it and sometimes he doesn't. So this is, the great thing about painting is you can manifest things that aren't there and put them on equal footing to the things that are. So this is a phantom pain being going into his head, which is where the nerves are going into, right? And his life in a wheelchair, it's rough. As he says, I'm no hero, but the guy is working full-time, teaching graduate students, teaching sociological theory. I can't even read the titles of the books he reads. But he's very political, and so am I. And as he said, we have a lot in common. We both look at the world. I was like, that's right. Very good. This is the corner of my studio, because I like to share that with you, since many of you you're all invited to come over if you're ever in New York, but you may never see it. But this is how wacky it looks. And this is called Ominous Passage. This is a painting kind of post-Bill from, I think, 2012. So we're catching up, finally. It's the 59th Street Bridge. If I'm going uptown, I use this bridge. Doesn't look like that, obviously. There's no bear trap about to grab you. But that is Midtown. It's a wonderful bridge. It's kind of everyone considers it a really ugly bridge. I kind of love it. And they had just painted it this beautiful Naples yellow, wacky color, but I thought it was great. And then all the metal around it's very black, so it looked pretty snazzy. Can you see how thick the paint? I wish I could show you a live painting. I should carry a painting with me when I go to slide tour, because it's so thick in places. This is called teratoma cloud. Do you all know what a teratoma is? I hope not. It's a kind of a cancer. A very good friend's mother had died. Teratoma is a kind of cancer that gathers crap from inside your body to it. And they find all kinds of weird things, sometimes teeth and bones and all kinds of weird stuff in it. And my friend, who was a sculptor, did an incredible sculpture of it. And I thought, oh, I love the idea of that cloud that's got all the crap in it. So it's kind of floating over the East River. We had to move after Bill lost his leg we lived in a 2-story in one of these cheapo row houses since '94 that we couldn't live in because we couldn't get him into the apartment. So I had to find an elevator apartment. I found a tiny apartment right on the East River, and our view is Midtown. So that was like a gift to myself for having to both of us really, for having gone through this hell. So this is our view. Got to know all the tugboats. You get to know the river life. I go to sleep, and I can line my pillow up and see the Empire State Building and the East River and the traffic. Oh, it's so beautiful. And for him, it's great, because he's at home a lot, so he has a place to watch, the birds. Our cat loves it. She sits by the window, watches it go by. This is called Necklace of Stones. Again, a kind of post-Bill painting. This is very big as well. It's like about 6 by 8 or something like that. It's the East River. I'm connecting the boulders along Brooklyn to the trails of water, back to Manhattan. Follow the clouds, back to a crane that looks like the inside of a body, right? With the end of the crane hanging in the middle. So it's just my way of kind of visually saying everything is connected, which it is in my head. A very non-hierarchical. I think that's a good quality to have for a painter. And what is this called? It's obviously a night painting. I have no idea what I remember. A foggy night in Brooklyn. It's a summer night. Night in the city has nothing to do with blackness. It's always illuminated. And when it's really illuminated, the buildings project their light onto the clouds. It's quite beautiful, particularly the Empire State. So I brought all the main buildings kind of to front stage. So you've got so if you think of the city as being back there and this big cloud hanging over, this fog cloud, here's the Empire State, here's the Chrysler, here's a few other buildings, and they're kind of the main actors, stage front. But it's really quite challenging to paint the night city because it's not dark, and you want to paint it dark, right? It's all these blues and blacks over blues. And this is called on guard, expression mark. And another great thing about New York is the weather. There's always a lot of activity going on in the sky. And you can imagine, since my story is always about movement and weather and moving, it was a very stormy. It's always stormy. We're right on the ocean. So this was like a battle between this white cloud and the storm cloud. And they're like fencing. They're in a duel. And this is the view from Greenpoint. These are some of the projects across the East River. There's some parkland, power plant that infamously shut down during that Sandy storm. I have a painting of the storm. Empire State. This is called electrical storm, but it's really a post-Sandy storm, also really wide. This is about 12 feet wide. The lines are me turning the electrical storm into physical being and presence. Again, I love to equalize all the senses so that, as we live in the world, we have to prioritize things because otherwise we'd be knocking into everything and falling down. But the truth is, the biggest thing in our world is the space itself, right? And also, we're all very aware of movement, but we tend not to think of it as a physical presence that can be manifest. So that's what I do. That's what we get to do as painters. We can equalize all those stories and not prioritize. So electrical passages and travel lines and wakes, clouds, and buildings are just part of it. And they also turn into a story and lose their singularity. This is called All Around Town. And, okay, I'll just travel with you. So that's the tip of Manhattan. And you're going uptown, and you hit the new World Trade Center, which is finished now. And then we keep traveling. And we're at about Midtown. Here's the Empire State. And we're going to the Bronx. So I sort of turned the city into a spiral with these wacky clouds that are kind of hovering around. And these are two wakes of tugboats. So the river has sort of become a lake surrounded by the city. And this is called agape, which means sort of in awe or open. And it's again another big work site that was once a beautiful open field, some warehouses, some wild grasses, and now it's become another condo. And you can see there's a pink crane in the middle that's just starting to build. It wouldn't even be so bad if these buildings weren't just so ugly. Oh, God, terrible. And this is called Old Souls. This is from also 2012. I've slowed down a lot because I'm sort of packing up the end with more paintings since they're more recent. My parents died, and one after the other very soon, very close to each other. They were 91 and 90, and they'd been a couple since they were 21. Rare these days. So some of these black clouds are the wise old souls of people I've lost. And again, it's, what can I say? Every cloud is its own voice, its own actor on the stage. I can tell you physically that, oh, something I have not mentioned. I save all the paint I scrape. And one of the things I do besides make marks like this, paint your more typical painted marks, a brush mark, a scrawly mark, is I take chunks and stick them back on. So it's still all oil and canvas. But I feel like it's very important to constantly change the way and the amount that I put on, at least for me. Because it's sort of like an orchestra with lots of different instruments. So sometimes you might just want a violin solo, but sometimes you want like a whole range of sound, staccato. Like I think of the chunks as being like the drum or staccato. They're like raw and rough and static and lumpy and physical. And then the wet, soft, fluid marks are like the violins, or do you know what I'm saying? It's just bringing a lot of different voices together. After all, it's a language like any other painting, with as many infinite parts to it as things you can think to say. This is called Rolling Thunder. It's a huge painting as well. It was just in a show about a year ago. And again, it's a painting about Sandy, about the hurricane that kind of blacked out the city. I guess you had it here too? You did, right? It was pretty bad there. So the storm is coming in from the right. And it was pretty amazing to watch because at one point the storm was here and it was totally clear over here. And I love the idea that you could paint. And actually the last thing I've just been working on is a painting of night going into day. And I love the idea that you can paint different times of the day. The nice thing about panoramas is you could kind of do that, right? Like the 11th, 12th century Chinese painters did. So the night and the storm are here. I call this being dicked. So this looks like a condom or something. Kind of funny. I tease it. This is one of my teasy drawings I wrote, and I was like, oh, that's really funny. And that's Manhattan. You gotta like laugh at yourself, right? You can't, the main thing is to stay stubborn, but you have to laugh at it yourself. So again, the same view, right? The storm coming in. That's the new World Trade Center, now really sticking up. And it's going into, if you saw the painting live, this is like completely white and luminous. So when you look at the painting, it's really, truly transforming from one side to the other. And another smaller version of a similar kind of idea and view, which is called, like I'm going to remember. Silver, it's called Silver Bullet Express. And that's the silver bullet. So I've sort of turned it, actually it reminds me of a subway train, which are silver in New York. So it's as if the train kind of leapt up and it's flying across the city. Midtown, New World Trade. I think because it's a slightly smaller painting, I think it's about only like 5 or 6 feet wide. Maybe you could see the paint physical quality better. This is called Cradling the City. You see how I forget my own titles? Can you see the cradle? It's a kind of a gnarly old hand scaffolding holding New York City in its palm. Got the whole world. I'm not religious, but I like the idea of it. And I feel that way about the city. This is not a big painting, by the way. This is just, I don't know the dimensions. It's like this. Can I do that? It's this big. Can you see something happening here with my color? I can't explain the color thing. All of a sudden, something snapped in me 2 years ago where I understood that color was movement. I cannot explain it. Not like I didn't use color before, but it suddenly became a kind of a movement, just like my mark, my line, the lumps. And you'll see the color starts to sort of participate in a different way. Maybe you can tell me what you see after my talk. That's, by the way, from where I live now. If you go down to the waterfront, you can look at Manhattan at a certain angle and see right through Midtown to the Hudson River on the other side. It is so cool. And there's a little park right by the river. And so you can walk out on this pier and just orient yourself and look right across. And the sun sets on the west side, on the Hudson side. So once in a while, in the summer, you can sort of see the sunset through the city. So cool. Oh, this is the Tower of Babel. It's just a little painting, but it's a scaffolding, as you can see. But I suddenly realized it was like the Tower of Babel, except what it's building is like a radio wave. You can see that scraped into the paint, right? It's very thick. And it's communicating with, I don't know, a black hole up there or something. Or you know what it is? It's communicating with painters. It's going, I'm paint, hi. It's paint. It's just paint being proud to be paint. Happy to be paint. This is called Deep Ravine. So, okay, we're on to the last theme here, which is I was offered a chance to do a mural of Toronto for a Mies van der Rohe tower in the main lobby. I've never really done a commission like this, ever, and I don't work, I fail forward, right? So it was really scary to think about how could I stay myself. So anyway, I'll try to tell the story a little more coherently, but this TD Bank that owns the Mies van der Rohe Tower paid for me to go to Toronto for a week and draw. Because I didn't, even though I go there a lot, I didn't really know the city the way I know New York, nor do I now. You can't kind of fall in love with a city in a week. But I did hundreds of drawings. I had a wonderful time. And one of the great things about Toronto are these deep ravines, which I didn't even know about until I was there, and people started feeding me. Oh, you should see here, you should go here, you should go here. And so I stood on this one ravine with, it has a famous bridge, I forget what it's called. And you could look down, and it's really deep, and there's traffic. Plus it has this wonderful, again, it reminded me of the Balzac's tunnel. And also, let's face it, that's the woman's sign, if you know what I'm saying. As opposed, I'm not giving you the finger, but you know, so if a man does this to you, you just do that to them. Go, oh yeah, well, it's kind of hard to do it quickly. That's like easier, but it's worth, yeah, let's go, oh, shut up. Go F off. There's a famous feminist stand-up comic who put that in my mind about 20 years ago. I've never forgotten it, but I can't for the life of me remember who it was. But so wonderful, isn't it? These are all the highways on the edge of Toronto. You know, like I think it's called the Gardner and the 401 or something. And I just love the view of those when you get up over them. And they look like kind of veins and beautiful lines, like any excuse for a line, right, when you're painting and drawing. And here's some of those ugly, nasty condos. And I call them the molars, because they all look like these ugly old teeth. And they're really tacky. They look like it should be in Miami Beach or something. What are they doing in Toronto? But some of the things I love there, that of course is the lake, that gold building, which is in this, and I'm so excited to see this mural because I just got the photographs back yesterday and I managed to get them into the talk, but I haven't actually seen them projected. So do you mind if I rush for? Okay, here's some more studies. You know, it took me about a year to start the mural because, you know, I put the drawings up, I have to think about them, I have to do paintings about them. This is called, what is this called? Red Sky at Morn, as the sailors say. And that's the sun not being red. And this is called Red-Eyed Sky. It's Toronto, kind of. But it's weather. It's a big, big painting. And this is called I think the owl flies at dusk. It's something like that. Do you all know about the owl? Should I quickly tell you about the owl? The owl that flies at dusk is from Hegel, the philosopher, and it really speaks to my heart because what it is that you only gain wisdom at the end of the day. So the owl represents wisdom in Greek mythology. So the owl only takes off at dusk, it flies at night. So in a way what it's saying, it's kind of related to Marx as well, but also about things always being in motion, that you gain wisdom after the day is done. So you're kind of always a little bit out of sync, but it means you have to keep moving forward to keep gaining wisdom. I love the idea of that. And it's so true, it's so obvious, right? You see what I mean about the color though, huh? Something really transformed. It's been very exciting for me. And I love that the dusk, the sunset, in a way when you see a sunset, it's almost a whiteout. It's not red. The red sometimes, for a moment it's red, but then the red manifests in the sky, and the sun itself turns to white, which is hotter than red. My studio again, just I just want you to get a sense of how wacky it is. In terms of how much I'm able to look at stuff at one time. Anyone else comes in there gets kind of nauseous, but for me it's no problem. This is a fisheye lens. It's very weird perspective. And this is called old row houses. I don't know if you know Toronto, but they're these little pointy roofed houses that I just love. Oh, and there's no name for that in architecture. I've asked Toronto, there must be, but no one could give me the answer. But I find them so charming. They look Halloween-y to me. And here's a couple more studies, panoramas. You could see the expressway again. This is about 8 to 10 inches high and like 80 inches wide. It's a very wacky little painting. And this also, from nothing to something, right? Okay, I have to rush ahead. And this is, God, I forgot I had all these other paintings. I did all these paintings in June and July before I started the mural because I was having another show. This is called The Gull's Flight Over Manhattan. Actually over Brooklyn, not Manhattan. And it was me connecting Toronto to Brooklyn. So half of the city, in my mind, is Brooklyn and half is Toronto. And the city is kind of doing this. You could see how I move from representing to not representing. I think that kind of speaks for itself. I barely have to say it. But this is the gull's silhouette. So we're kind of seeing it through the eyes of a gull flying. Again, I should go back to what I said at the very beginning. Painting is slow. So when you first look at a painting of mine, it just looks like an abstract work with movement. And then you can start to find a pathway through. This is called Yellow Storm. Why there's so much yellow in it? Toronto seemed to have a lot of yellow dawns and dusks, at least the week I was there. So it's just yellow being such a color of light and transformation. And God knows what this is called. I've completely forgotten. Night Bright, I think, maybe. This is called The Windmill and the Tower. There's like two windmills, new air, wind power mills in Toronto right now that you can see on the waterfront. And it had a Don Quixote quality to me, right? Like he was always fighting the windmill, so here's a windmill fighting a massive tower. So this is a little painting. So I threw it in there so you could see the physicality of the paint. Yay! This is what I've just emerged from. 3 months, 14 to 18 hours a day. This is 30 feet wide and 11 feet high. It's called Restless Prowling, From Night to Daybreak. And this is the mural in my crazy studio. It's on 6 panels. And I decided to have the panels move up and down a little bit because I thought kind of that geometric movement subconsciously would conjure up the way the city affects us in its geometry and its kind of up and downness. And it participates in the movement of the painting itself. And I'm going to show it to you two ways. So here we're kind of closer up. It's night. There's a gold building and a few other favorite buildings, some reflections of the lights of the building on the lake. And you could see, of course, a panorama kind of moving all the way through. And here are some of the travel lines I was talking about. There's that big old cloud. There's a scaffolding that's become a scaffolding of metaphor rather than a scaffolding of thingness. That's kind of trying to make sense of, make shape of this restless prowling, which is, what is restless prowling about? It's about how we as viewers and speakers and meaning-making people of creative force are kind of never settled. Always working, always looking, always thinking, always putting it together. And perhaps also I'm talking about all the spirits that are prowling around through the night. So then we're sort of moving into the dawn. There's this big seahorse cloud that sort of spins up there, kicking out the night, maybe. That's the Rogers Center. It was called, what was it called before? Yeah, that's such a nicer name. Rogers sounds so clunky, doesn't it? But as seen from the top of a skyscraper. And this is its parking lot that to me always looked like it, as seen from above, they kind of are the same size. But it looks to me like a duck or something kind of poking the Rogers Center, which I thought was hysterical. And here's some of Toronto. These buildings right here are the Mies van der Rohe buildings. So I painted them into the painting, except unlike Mies, who's Mr. Black Geometry Reductive, I made them all like super duper lumpy and moving around. So Mies can be rolling over in his grave somewhere. Here's the CN Tower. And then we move to dawn, to at least daybreak. I wish I had some close-ups, but I don't think I do. I'm going to show you the flattened version of it. This is the way it will hang. Next time you're in Toronto, as of the end of December, if you go to the TD Center, you'll see it there, which should be a lot better. And I actually drew a big map of it, with like names and words and ideas and different things and like naming things I had it photographed. I don't have it here, but I'm going to have it Xeroxed, copied up so it can be on the desk. So anyone that's looking at the painting who's interested can take one. And I'm hoping it'll help slow people down to really look at it. But it's there's almost no paint here again. And this white cloud to me is like a kind of opposite in all its sense. Like the daybreak is light and the white cloud is light. It's like a white angel or something, like Angels in America angel crashing into the daybreak. And this is really, really disappearing into nothing. And you could see all these marks. They're both reflective marks and travel marks. It's very thick in places. Part of the CN Tower is like this thick. And there are lumps here in the water/roads that are insanely thick. And that's the story. And I want to thank you so much for taking me out of the studio and getting me away. It's so wonderful to step away. It's sort of, I have no idea how I made it. I cannot believe I made this. It just seemed impossible the whole way. And then all of a sudden there it was. And for about 2 weeks, there it was every day. You need about 2 weeks to be sure that it's done. That whole problem of, how do you know when it's done? Keep coming back. But it continues to say, I'm alive. Get out of here. Leave me alone. It's done. So do we have time for any questions? You can ask me questions now. You can ask me questions later. Right to left. What the hell can you tell me why I'm doing? I'm left-handed and I'm Jewish, but I'm not religious. Could that mean? But I never learned Hebrew. I know a little Yiddish. Like, I'm a New York Jew. That's very different than Israel. I take no responsibility for that. Nor do I for America. I apologize profusely for being American. Please forgive me. I feel like a monster. No, but I think it's a left-handedness, too. But honestly, I want you to be able to read them in entering and exiting in any way. And I'm not necessarily making them from right to left, but it seems like I always end up, I feel more comfortable. And it must be just left-handedness. That makes so much sense. Anyone else left-handed? There's usually a lot of lefties in art. Like, you know how you're always dragging the damn ink and all that stuff? Well, you've seen Obama trying to write, right? He's like, we call that the front hand and the back hand, you know, like lefties learn all these weird positions because we're trying not to mess up our paper. But good point. I see myself as a hyper-realist. Because I don't think hyper-real, in terms of hyper-real painting and photography, is hyper-real at all. I'm as conceptual as I am a painter. I really allow my thinking and my meaning to drive it. And whatever happens physically is subject to the thinking rather than the other way around. And it's a great liberating way to paint. So you don't feel like you have to develop a style, ever. It will be there. I mean, clearly my paintings look like my paintings, but God knows I'm not trying to make a Heller, and if I ever do, they're dead as doornails. You know? So don't be afraid to steal like crazy and suck in everything you can. Like, you can't copy. It's impossible. And just let it be. Let it slowly come out. It took me 10 years after school to like find a voice. To start to feel like, believe it or not, when I was a student, I couldn't talk. I was so shy. I was so full of excitement and shy at the same time that if I was ever asked a question, I'd turn screaming red, get tears in my eyes, and almost like not be able to talk. I mean, look at me now, you can't shut me up. Right? But that only happened because I came to understand what I want, what I'm about, and what I'm not about. And the not about is just as important because you're like, oh, I don't have to prove other than what I am. And if I don't know, I can just say, I don't know. It's all right. You know, you can't be about everything, and you can't be right. You could just be you. And the more you're you and make your work about you, the more original it's going to be. Because you're the only original thing about you. Everything else is from something else, right? So it's a very empowering thing if you can touch it and not let all the negative and all the failure get in the way. Failure is a wonderful thing if you can stay optimistic, because it's telling you what not to do, i.e. telling you what to do. It's helping you edit. So if you go the wrong way and it's saying, you're like, oh, thank you. Oh, I see. All right. So that's not the way. It must be this way. And you try that. If you can keep a positive mind, which, okay, a lot of us like are this emotionally. And believe me, through the day, I have times when I think, what am I thinking? You know, or I made that painting. So what? I'll never make another. You know, that kind of. Like your little successes kind of end up kind of terrorizing you or something because you'll never make it as good again. Long answer. No, but I'm very political. And I go on marches, and I was on Occupy Wall Street every day. Just like I'm not a realist, like I don't paint buildings for building's sake, I feel like the politics are there in the joy and tragedy and agony and whatever that's in the painting. Like, you know the way Dancing in the Street, you know the song? It's kind of an anarchistic song, but it's also about dancing. That to me is what paintings are. They can only do what they can do. For me, I love Guernica. It's actually one of the most important paintings in my life. I can tell you the story after the talk. Really, it taught me how to see. When I was 5 years old and living in New York, and Guernica was there. I used to be parked there by my parents and read it and watch it. So I love political art that really works, but I can't do it. But I am extremely political, yes. Oh, well, you know, almost any city, probably almost any town, if I'm there long enough, you can fall in love. Like, I lived in Paris for about a year and a half, and it actually taught me how to start to draw New York. Because in a way it's more compact, at least the middle, the famous old part. And I always knew I wanted to paint and draw the city, but I couldn't do it. So actually, when I was at school, I didn't do cities at all. I did trees, which were like stand-ins. And then I did trees in the city. And then I went to Paris, and I started to be able to figure out how to see the city. And then when I got back to New York. So other cities, I mean, there's so many beauties. I grew up in Montreal. I should go there, but I don't have a great love affair with Montreal, maybe because I grew up there. I think it's a much better city now than when I was there. But probably I was in Shanghai for about 3 weeks. I was in a museum show, and I drew like crazy there. It was fantastic. So, sure, if I was there long enough, like meeting a person, you have to get to know them and kind of fall in love, and then you can, of course, tell all about them. Do you think about cities? Is that something you've... It's a crazy thing to take on because it's too big. But in a way, that's what's so wonderful. Paintings are completely, ridiculously impossible. What one is trying to do in one, the magic of them, you know. What else? Or hold a question for later, or sign up with me and talk to me. I'll be around all day. I love to look at art. I love to talk about it. So, or come later tonight once I get that glass of wine in me. I didn't even drink the water, right? I didn't look once at my notes. I'm ridiculous. So, what's next?
Okay, well, thank you again.
Oh, thank you.